Hi, Sam from the AEW Match Guide here. Before we get into the podcast today, I wanted to let you know about the amazing new partnership that the Social Suplex Podcast Network has announced with Chopped Tees, where you can now buy unique, colourful and expressive merch to support your favourite shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Every show has their own merch lines, unique to their show's personality. From One Nation Radio Dream Team inspired shirts, to Imp's WWE Adventure teacups, to Tunnel Talk's pillow, tumbler and giant snuggie combo. My favourite, of course, is the AEW Match Guide shirt and hoodie, which supports not just this podcast, but celebrates the greatest matches in AEW history, as we do here on this podcast every week. We designed it to emulate the great rock records of old with the new podcast artwork, representing AEW's founders Kenny, Cody and the Bucks on the front, and then the top 50 matches from the AEW Match Guide 5th anniversary list tallied out on the back like an old World Tour rock t-shirt. It truly is a one-of-a-kind wrestling shirt that looks great and stands out from the crowd. I can personally say that the shirts from Chopped Tees are great quality and feel great. Every order has free shipping worldwide with no tax at checkout, and thanks to Chopped Tees, the first orders on the site also get 10% off. There's a link in the podcast description, but don't wait. Head to chopped-tees.com/social suplex to check out our new merch line and support the podcast network. We love you guys listening and hope you are as excited as we are and go the big lift for us with this new merch line. Also, as my own bonus, I will find a way to buy a beer or your drink of choice for the first person to get my shirt on AEW TV. That's a challenge out there for all of you. But that's enough about our shirts and merch. Let's hit the music and get on with the show. Welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast, where we deep dive into the best matches in AEW history. Brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network and your host, Sam Brown. Hello and welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast. I'm your host, Sam Brown. Thank you for joining me. Every episode, alongside a special guest, I take an in-depth look at one of the best matches in AEW history. If you enjoy the show today, you can subscribe and rate it on your podcast app of choice, support the podcast financially through Red Circle, and make sure you check out all of the other great shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, where we cover all aspects of the world of pro wrestling. We've got One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Tunnel Talk, the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, Wrestle Art with Chris Sings, and Imp's WWE Adventure. You can become part of the Social Suplex community by joining our Discord, where you can chat directly to the host of the show and other listeners about wrestling, sport, pop culture, and much more. And of course, don't forget to check out this Match Guide Substack, where I drop my written pieces every other fortnight. Links for all of these things are in the podcast description. My guest for today is a rapper, producer, podcaster, and general shit stirrer. You might know him from being the host of One Nation Radio. It's Rich Latta, and we're discussing Kenny Omega versus Hijo Del Vikingo from Dynamite, the 22nd of March, 2023. How are you going today, Rich?
Oh, I'm good, Sam. I'm gonna have to add shit stir to the official bio, just so people don't get it fucked up or anything. So
yeah, you can have that one for free, mate. It's all yours. Hey, mate, I before we get into things, I just wanted to publicly congratulate you for all the amazing things you've been doing since the last time we spoke here on the podcast. You're no stranger to this podcast, but since we were last on air back in 2022, you've had so many big things going off. Getting involved in AEW, producing entrance themes for them, and of course being the lead producer on the Who We Are Mark II, second Who We Are album. Massive things, and it's just been a pleasure to see you sort of going off into the stratosphere and really achieving a lot of the things that I know you've been working really hard on. So congratulations to that, mate.
Thank you, man. A lot of that stuff that has come has kind of been the result of just, preparation that was happening and when the lights are not on. So when some of the stuff actually breaks through, I feel very fortunate to have those things happen, and most appreciated for you showing the love, and happy to, be on this show. This is one of my favorite podcasts on the network or concepts we've ever had, and especially with someone like that's got the talent of yourself, with how much you dig into the matches. We always talk amongst each other, like how we were writing columns like with each other during that summer, just getting each other better essentially. So I always feel kind of linked to you for a little bit on that, and it's always great to talk with my favorite mate down under.
Joe the Sava's going to be hitting up my DMs now, being like, can't forget him.
What's up, Joe?
So far, since when you've been on this podcast, you and I have spoken about Pac versus Kenny Omega, Hangman and Kenny versus the Young Bucks, and now we're talking about Omega versus Vikingo. Rich, I'm sensing a theme to all of this here.
Man, it's just a lot of great wrestling, man. No, you think I like that Kenny Omega guy a little bit.
He goes all right. He goes pretty well. I feel like we should take our cues. I said this when I was talking about Punk and Eddie a couple of weeks ago, and I said we should probably take our cues from them, and we should do it in this instance as well. And let's get straight into the build of the match, because they didn't muck around with this match. They got stuck into things pretty quickly in the build and the match itself. So let's get going on it. As we always do here on the AEW Match Guide, we'll give the match its flowers. The Wrestling Observer newsletter gave it 5 stars. Cage match, it's currently rated at 9.11. And when we did the AEW Match Guide, the top 50 matches of AEW's first 5 years earlier this year, this one came in at 40th. So it is not only a match that was well rated at the time, it is a match that has stood the test of time and is well regarded amongst commentators and fans from around the internet wrestling community. And I think it's one that has a surprising amount of depth and a surprising amount of things that we can talk about in relation to it. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting into it. Rich, the first thing I thought we'd talk about, though, is the build to this match, or sort of lack of massive build, because it became a real flashpoint at the time it was announced. There was no official build for this on TV or anything. It was from memory, and from what I've looked back on, it was mostly announced online through Twitter by Tony Khan, and it queued up a week of discourse about how AEW promotes its matches, how it introduces new wrestlers, because this was going to be the first time Vikingo had wrestled on AEW TV, on Dynamite. And while that discourse was fueled by a lot of the absolute worst faith people that we shouldn't be giving airtime to, it is such a big part of the ongoing AEW discourse, even amongst, the people who are making genuine good faith critiques. And I think we need to address it when we're talking about this match, because it was such a big part of the week leading up to it. What's your take on the way that AEW, I guess, sometimes chooses just to purely promote a fixture like this one with, limited to no build?
So, like, for me, I guess I'm a little more connected to it because, like, this was a match that was for a fan like me. So it's hard for me sometimes to step out of how I feel about it, because this match was an urban legend amongst itself. It's like before 2023 ever came, like, this match was supposed to happen at least in December of 2021. So, like, yep, we already knew that these guys, like Kenny Omega, specifically picked Vikingo to work with years ago. And this was like a match that we just was like, yo, I hope we get to see it. I hope we get to see it because, as Kenny was going through his AAA defenses, Vikingo was like steadily rising up. Like, they were trying to build him up simultaneously. But Kenny ended up so injured that literally he went down the month kind of before it happened. So you add a whole nother year to that. And then Vikingo, trying to get in the, with the visas and starting getting, booked in America and stuff like that. And by the time this match came, I was like, hell yeah, let's go. Let's get it popping. And then, some of the criticism is kind of like a Rubik's Cube for AEW. I feel like, they'll just, turn it and then it'll be something else. But this was really like a flashpoint, as you mentioned, in people just curling into a ball, just being deathly afraid of wrestlers that they've either never seen or wrestlers from like international guys, or like the nerve they had, the nerve that something could be a dream match that is just a fear, like fear of the unknown, which I find really strange, and I find to be kind of off-putting myself. And I think like the worst thing that was going to happen was they were going to have a match that you didn't like for a company you probably don't care about, and it was going to bomb, like ratings wise, right? And then they'll be back on TV the next week. None of the three happened. So like it was an epic L all around for people that were concerned about the rating, people that thought the match was not going to match for whatever reason. And then like, anytime you throw Kenny Omega in there, just people just get wacky and dumb. Some of that is kind of transferred to Will Ospreay now, but Kenny Omega has held that, title for quite a long time. And this was definitely one where, you look at the things that were going on in the company at the time. I'm sure we'll probably get into it. This was almost a win for the AEW I wanted to see.
Yep. Yeah, look, in regards to that, I would say, like you said, this was for fans like you. And you know what? A sizable portion of AEW's audience is fans like us. And while they should be, they absolutely should be trying to attract new fans, right? Like that is there is like this, the idea, the myth, or the whatever you want to call it, the discourse of the casual fan. Who knows what that person looks like? It's certainly not me. It's certainly not you. But they should be trying to attract new people to the product. Any business should be trying to, build up what it does, promote what it does. But you also have like an audience that exists, and you have to also, any business has to look after the existing business that they have. For instance, myself, I work, without giving away too much where it, becomes a professional thing, I work as a relationship manager. I've got a portfolio of clients. I've got two jobs that I've got to do. I've got to look at attracting new clients, and I've got to look after my existing book, because I can go after new clients, but if I get a bunch of new clients, but then lose half my book because I haven't been looking after them, that's not going to look good for me. That's not going to be good for me, because then I've lost a whole bunch of the work I've done. There's two things that need to happen, and AEW has to exist like that as well. And sometimes they do need to do a match for an audience like us, for fans that are plugged in, for fans that are, were excited to see Kenny Omega and El Hijo del Vikingo wrestle. And wrestle on a big stage, and wrestle, in an environment that is exciting and awesome to see them in. So, I think there has to be room for both. And this was obviously something that was very much for, or at least initially, it was, pitched to people like you, myself, and you. The more diehard, the hardcore audience, the sickos, the freakazoids, whatever. There's lots of different terms for us. I'd also say like there was a whole lot of discourse, and it's remained about how AEW introduces new wrestlers that have never wrestled on AEW TV before. And this was an introduction for Vikingo, and he went on to have other matches in AEW and probably would have continued to if he hadn't got injured. And then there's, of course, like the political stuff with AAA and CMLL that AEW is sort of in the middle of. That has meant he's probably not going to feature on AEW TV for a while. But he did feature in 2023. He was on ROH pay-per-views. But this was his introduction. And I think for some wrestlers, like having a match is actually the best introduction. Like just having them hit the ring is going to be better than anything else you can put together for them. On the way to the ring, Excalibur says, this is, AAA Mexican champion, El Hijo del Vikingo. Here's one of the most incredible high flyers we've seen out there. And we're happy to have him in AEW to show what he can do and to challenge one of our top guys, Kenny Omega. Like for some people, for some wrestlers, that is the best introduction you can give them. And I think Vikingo, he fits firmly into that. Like the best thing he can do is get in there and wrestle and show people what he does.
Exactly. Especially this is not his homeland. I don't know if Vikingo, can cut a promo in English. I don't know if he can do these things like that you would need to carve out, time for or anything like that. Could you do like a 30-second sizzle reel or so, or a sizzle reel or something? Sure, you could, but it's not like it's in AAA where you can send him out there and he already has that connection. They dropped this man in Independence, Missouri, I believe. That's where they had this match. So square in the middle of America. Like this is not a hub of New York City, Los Angeles, or anything like that. This is
Watertown, Arlington, Texas.
right. Like this is north of that. So like this was like, all right, we're gonna put you in there with Kenny Omega and you do what you do. Rey Mysterio Jr. was introduced the same way in WCW. He didn't even know he was wrestling on a pay-per-view when he debuted. Like, I don't know if you ever heard the story about that. He was wrestling Dean Malenko at Great American Bash 1996. Goes out there. People were like, who's this kid? Like, Scott Hall is like, who's this kid that's like coming, whatever. Of course, Mike Tenay is plugged into AAA and everything like that. And this guy had been, tearing it up in ECW and stuff the year before. But, WCW is different. So goes out there, has a great match with Malenko, comes back, and they're like, yeah, that was a pay-per-view. And he's like, oh, like I was just, doing my thing. And he was a made man from then on. So like why it was good enough for Rey Mysterio to do it, but no one else is very telling, I think. And it kind of goes back to the mentality, even with WWE, how everyone had to be the same. They had to fit into the Rey Mysterio box. They had to be the next Rey Mysterio. But if everyone has to be the next Rey Mysterio, no one gets to become themselves. And with Vikingo, just get in the ring, like, because the bar is kind of, this guy is spectacular, and he showed it.
I feel like they have adjusted the way they do things slightly. I've definitely seen more video packages recently than happened then for wrestlers that are coming in like this, and I think it's a good compromise. But and I'm not saying like you don't set up stories, of course. Like, of course, both you and I, we love short-term stories, love long-term stories, but sometimes it is great to just have an awesome match. And you know what? Like, this worked. What happened worked. TV ratings wise, they improved across total viewers and demo over the week beforehand, which is probably the best measure you could have of has this thing that we announced and just has it popped something, and it did. So 852 versus 954, so about 100K extra viewers, and the demo went up from 0.27 to 0.33. That's a little jump, and this was absolutely the biggest match on the card. So that has to take the credit for doing it.
What do you mean? You don't think it was Hook versus Stokely Hathaway, or Tony Storm versus Sky Blue?
Look, I don't know. Kenny Omega guy's a pretty big star,
sometimes they seem
when he has
to
a singles match, it's kind of a big deal. And I have to say this, right? Like, because as I said at the start, like, some of this was fueled by the absolute worst faith people, and of course, like, it hasn't been acknowledged by those same people that when NXT started its partnership with TNA, somehow everyone was psyched for Jordynne Grace at the Royal Rumble. They knew who she was. I don't know how, but they somehow they knew. And, somehow they all know Joe Hendry and Frankie Kazarian and whoever else is showing up in it. Like, somehow there's like, these audience just, they know that, other people can come in and, like, without any kind of announcement, and they're happy to have him there. It's crazy how that all works out.
Really incredible. I can't believe what happens to these fans, but whatever mental block they seem to have just magically disappears, and I'm happy for them.
Yes. Well, look, let's get past those people. As I said, they don't deserve the kind of air that we give them. I've, fed into it by just talking about them there, but whatever. They need to be called out.
Before we do that, like, I just want to say, like, this was also like an exercise in the discourse being the promotion, because people talked themselves all weekend into, that this is not a dream match. They said it so hard, like they tried to establish it so much, and there was, a large amount of pushback that it became the story, and they couldn't avoid it. So maybe if they just let it go, maybe no one would have cared.
This is the AEW equivalent of the Legental Activity.
Amazing.
That's 4D chess for you. Look, right. Let's get beyond it. I want to ask you, Rich, like, what did you know about Vikingo before he showed up in AEW?
So I knew very little of Vikingo. I was familiar to him for a couple great matches heading back to like 2019. There was like a famous match with him and Laredo Kid that was getting passed around YouTube, and it was a 15-minute match, and it looked like it was in some underground arena in Mexico or something like that, and it was just this incredible match that happened. And that's like when I saw like one great match of someone like that, that's enough for me to be like, yeah, that person's great. That like I'll watch anything they do, if it comes across, my way. But I'm not an avid AAA viewer or anything, won't pretend, but I'll go out of my way to see, a heralded match like that. And then knowing, like, I was like, okay, I took what I knew about Vikingo and then knew what, Kenny Omega looked like when wrestling Dragon Lee, when wrestling Andrade, when wrestling Ray Phoenix, Pentagon Jr. And then, I had, Joe, I was like, this man's like the Executioner right now. Like Lucha Libre is like made for Kenny Omega style, whether it's, his flashy offensive stuff or like in this match, being a great base and allowing someone else, to kind of do their thing. He also had a great match with Laredo Kid, but Vikingo was like lurking in the background of Kenny Omega's entire like AAA title reign. Like you always thought it was going to lead there. So his reputation had been established to me about 4 years before this.
Yeah, he was someone that I pretty much knew by name alone, based on those sort of similar things, seeing his name pop up every now and again, seeing the odd sizzle reel. I hadn't actually seen a full match of his before this. Yeah. And, but yeah, I was very excited for this because I knew the name and I know Kenny Omega's, one of the greatest ever. So I was pumped for this match. Wildly, this was the return to Kenny Omega from AEW singles division for the first time since he faced Hangman Page at Full Gear 2021. Folks, wow. This is not even early 2023. It's the 22nd of March, 2023. So it's like 18 months. The only AEW singles match that he had between that and this match was on Dark against a guy called Hagani Shino. It's about, like a 10-minute match or so. And I think it was Kenny Omega just wanting a tune-up before he went to the Tokyo Dome to fight Will Ospreay. How do you feel about the presentation of Kenny Omega post-injury return, Rich?
So selfishly, I thought it was rather lackluster. I wasn't really, sure about, the injury stuff. There was a visa issue that, since it's, I don't know what, for like over a year and a half past this point, I think I can kind of talk about it. There's no statute of limitations here. So like he was dealing with a visa issue that, kind of restricted his travel in and out of America, which was, he was able to, he lives, in Florida, but as far as like working within the country, you need your work visa and all that stuff. So like we knew his, he had his Tokyo Dome commitments and stuff like that. I was not thrilled at how AEW highlighted those or, the lack of highlighting on that stuff when he walks, into Dynamite after the Will Ospreay match, and it's barely a mention, just a quick line during his entrance, and it's almost like, why does he have that, red belt with him? But like they don't, they don't have footage, they don't, really promote him extra hard. It felt like some people, they were trying to do some ego massaging, at this time, and obviously, with the return, it just became this elephant in the room. It's like, all right, man, like I love the trio stuff, like with him and the Bucks, and then some of that stuff started getting slowly pulled back because, like I said, they were dealing with those visa issues, and it became just like a distraction. It was like, damn, when are we gonna get Kenny Omega back, being the Kenny Omega we know, push as like this wrestling god, which like by this time I think a lot of like the Omega fan base was just like, all right, man, like we understand kind of like, all right, the selflessness that he's had in helping build this company, from literally day one, doing clean jobs in the middle when people wouldn't lose clean, holding the title like, during the pandemic and stuff like that, doing the long stories, basically going out there while injured and then getting surgery, coming back, trying to set up a whole thing. And it just became this joint. Is like, damn, how long do we have to wait for our guy to be, the one that, the baby face that he can be, even to this day, with his diverticulitis that's kind of kept him out all of 2024. I think a lot of us are just kind of waiting patiently, hoping that, he can get back to just doing what he does. I was not thrilled.
It's kind of forgotten now, but if you go back to 2022, when he comes back from the injury, you want to see a crowd go absolutely rabid and wild. When the Young Bucks come to the ring with that little note and give it to Justin Roberts, the lights dim and then the music starts and Justin Roberts starts rattling off the list of accomplishments. The crowd goes absolutely bonkers and sustained as well, not just for like the entire time Justin Roberts is saying that thing and the music's going in the background, and then Kenny Omega comes out and it goes even more wild. Like it is clear that to the AEW fan base, this is one of the guys, right? Like, and he is someone that they love, that they want to. And this felt like, in the wake of Brawl Out, him being in the trios division, to me, it felt like a systematic downcycling of him to appease certain political agendas that were at play. That's straight up what it felt like to me. And the fact that he, his match with Will Ospreay wasn't talked about at all, and this is, it's not like it's 2020 anymore. And there's this real, there's a frozen relationship between New Japan and AEW. So they don't talk about Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley going to the Tokyo Dome. This is this is post Forbidden Door, right? Like they have a full and flourishing working relationship. They could have got the footage. They could have talked about it, but they didn't. And it felt, and then he was kept out of it in the trios division. Obviously it seems like he wanted to be in the trios division with the Bucks. That's something that they wanted to do. But at the same time, the way that he was presented and the way that he was kind of not a featured attraction every single week on TV. I didn't know about the visa things. That kind of puts light into it, but it felt like it was as much that as practical, but a political thing to sort of be like, okay, we're not fully behind the Elite, and we're not fully behind Kenny Omega at least at the moment, for various political agendas that we've got. And for me, the lesson with Kenny in AEW has been not to hold off on the big matches. He's missed out on so many singles matches. He should have wrestled a singles match at Wembley last year, and he was in a trios match. It feels absolutely criminal now because he's not going to make Wembley this year. He's getting older, and his ability to defy age is marvelous, but it's not going to last forever. There's going to come a time where it's going to catch up with Kenny Omega, and he will probably be smart enough to adjust in ring if he continues to wrestle, adjust his style somewhat, but not making him a featured attraction week in, week out is an absolute mistake that they made. And now who knows what's going to happen when he comes back? He might come back full force, and we get that, but he seems to be cycling into he's not going to be the top guy like he was in 2020, 2021, but man, they have not done a good job at presenting him. And I think there's various bad reasons for that being the case.
Yeah. I when he came back this year and cut, that promo, where it was one of the best, kind of babyface promos he ever did in his career in his hometown. I think it just showed how many people just do live and die with this guy. I've kind of made peace with it not happening, just because of just seeing the, the wear and tear, the injuries, the selflessness, which we'll get back into, when we get to this match. This guy's, for better or for worse, and by proxy, this extends to the rest of the Elite. These selfless guys. I interviewed Kenny Omega about a month before this match happened, and he mentioned about one of the things that he was happiest to establish with AEW is getting wrestlers paid, getting other and more wrestlers paid, and this is how they see their legacy. So maybe that's the true measure of Kenny Omega.
Look, while we're on the topic, because this will probably be going up around about Hall of Fame season, it is a disgrace that the Young Bucks are not in the freaking Hall of Fame. For what they've done, they have done more. You could make an argument about the NWO, maybe. There's no faction that's had more of an impact on this business than the Elite for what they created, and all of them, Cody, Bucks, Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega's already in that Hall of Fame. Cody, Bucks, soon as they're up, they should be in. no questions asked. Like
Yeah.
this promotion is their legacy. If they had shit matches, like if they were terrible workers, they should still be in it. But they're also all-time greats in the ring. Like, man, absolute disgrace that that's not the case. Like, let's hope that's that. I've got a
I think they were
feeling
5% off last year, so I don't know.
I've got a
We'll
feeling
see.
it's not going to happen this year, Rich. I feel like the program they've been in this year for the Bucks is not going to work well for them.
It hasn't been inspiring.
Hasn't hit the way that I guess they'd hope. You know, who knows? It's July now. We'll see what happens in the next couple of months. But man,
Picture this. You're not just fixing cars, you're living your passion every day. At Cox, you'll work on a diverse range of automobiles. Surrounded by a team of friendly, like-minded individuals, you'll enjoy great pay and benefits. Ready to make this a reality? At Cox, we're recruiting auto and diesel techs to join our Mannheim and Fleet Services teams. Learn, grow, and fine-tune your career as a technician at Cox. Find out more at cox.career/autotech.
while we're on that, okay, let's get out of that. Let's get on to the match itself because it was a great match. As we said, it's on Dynamite, the 22nd of March, 2023. Vikingo comes out first with his helmet and cape. Great presentation, I think, Rich. Like, I love the music. It feels so grand. And I like his look. I love his hair, man. Like, it fits the character so much. He's got a good presentation, Vikingo, and it kind of one that sets him apart from other luchadors as well.
He looks cool, and it's like the son of the Viking. That's like what his name stands for. And it's like, all right, I don't know who the Viking is, but like they dress kind of out there like that. I'm with it.
You talked about, like, you know, in WWE, they tried for a while. They were just trying to remake Rey Mysterio. Like, they had Mystico, but it was like, no, he's got to be the next Rey Mysterio. They had Kalisto. Like, no, he's got to be Rey. Like, it's a mistake that Vikingo is not making is by trying to. He's looking unique to other luchadors, which I really like. And Omega's out next with his giant list of accomplishments as read off by Justin Roberts. And he's accompanied by Don Callis. The Young Bucks and Hangman Page went off in an ambulance earlier in the night. That was the opening angle for it. When the Bucks were attacked at the start of the show. I'm just kind of putting that there because it will play a role at the end of everything. Omega's got his little top ponytail. Kenny Omega's got great hair. Like, it's curly and weird, but this is one of my favorite of his hairstyles, like the little top ponytail.
I think this is one of the few times he did this one.
Yeah, it's a good look. It reminds me of I don't know if you've ever played this game, Rich, but there's The Witcher, Geralt from The Witcher. It's now a Netflix series as well, but it reminds me of that. It's a good look for Kenny. The entrance doesn't last long though, because Vikingo interrupts Kenny's entrance with a tope over the top rope. He follows up immediately with a second one. We talked about, like, making an introduction and letting the audience know what you're all about. What a great statement to make to start this match off, Rich.
Yeah, man. This was like they shot it perfectly too, because it's like all of a sudden you just see a whirlwind just flying by the camera, and then you know Kenny catches him and he's back on it immediately. And I love flips, so like it worked for me.
Yeah, it's a great statement of intent from Vikingo as well in the match. Like, I'm going up against, like, one of the top guys in this organization, but you know what? I'm a top guy. I'm not going to, like, respect and wait for him to do his entrance. I'm just going to take it to him from the start. So I like that he does that. Like, he's immediately showing that, like, I matter just as much as him. I'm not going to just let this guy walk all over me. I'm going to take it to him. And Vikingo immediately gets the better of Kenny once the bell sounds. He, like, dodges Kenny's attempts to hit him. He hits a implosion hurricanrana in the second. It's a flip off Kenny's shoulders in the corner. He then hits another hurricanrana, a corkscrew kick, knee strikes, like, through the ropes, and like a shooting star press to the outside. Rich, the knock on a match like this is it's just like moves with a Z. But I love how, like, Vikingo uses them so strategically to, like, introduce who he is, but also showing that he is on a different level to anyone that Kenny Omega's faced before. Like, Kenny actually can't keep up with his speed, and Kenny is a guy who's got a lot of explosiveness, but he can't keep up with Vikingo's raw speed. Right. He doesn't know where the next attack is going to come from either. It's a really good way to start this match.
The way Vikingo wrestled this match, it reminds me of the theme to 8 Mile, like, Lose Yourself. It was like, do not miss your chance to blow. It's like you got one shot. So like he was wrestling like I got 35 seconds before people like wonder what's going on. So I'm in that first 30 seconds, I'm gonna hit him with everything. And then what I liked about it was like everywhere Kenny would be and think there was a safe haven, it either backfired on him or it went, or he like was walking into a trap that kind of has been set up.
Yeah, like he's immediately putting himself on a different level strategically. He's like, no, you don't know the answers to these questions. You faced lots of wrestlers, Kenny, but you don't know the answers to these questions.
Right.
And like for a wrestler like Vikingo, we talked about, the introduction and stuff like that. What he does here in the first few minutes, this is the equivalent of Eddie Kingston coming out against Cody and cutting the promo that he did. Like this is how Vikingo shows who he is, what he's about, and gets himself over with the audience because it works. Like the crowd is immediately chanting, "This is awesome." And like from the start, that this is a guy who he's got a future in this company if he wants to.
Yeah. One thing that I like is if someone comes into AEW, like you're typically going to see what made them reverent wherever they come from. Like they're not going to ask you to tone your style down. They're not going to tell you, hey, we don't do that here. Like they're going to let you largely show why you're special. And that was the case for Vikingo.
Kenny fights back into the match. Obviously he's using his strikes and power. As we said, like the speed, he doesn't necessarily have the edge, but he does when it comes to power. And I've forgotten how well Vikingo sold in this match, especially when like Kenny's going after his ribs. Vikingo just like falls down like flat on the ground. He's like crawling to the ropes. And Kenny, it almost seems like he's relishing the punishment, and it's not like quite what he did to Ospreay in the Tokyo Dome match, but it's not too far off. And it's interesting to see him deploying that sort of attitude in this match.
For sure. Like it became like Vikingo's not fundamentally sound like the best wrestler or anything. Like there's gaps in his work, right? But I thought Kenny Omega was the person that filled those gaps for him. So it was like, hey, just be in the right place. Like I'm gonna take over and give you a break here with some of these power moves. And one of the things that I've always liked Kenny Omega for, he's always had exciting offense. This necessarily wasn't about exciting offense for him though. In this match, this was more about like, all right, I'm flying or I'm driving this uncontrollably fast race car. That's what I felt like he was doing. And it was like, if I run this thing into I can ride it up against the edge, but I cannot mark it up. And that's, I felt like they were great between the margins.
Absolutely. That's a really great way to put it. Actually, like, it's like sort of almost careering out of control, and all you can do is guide it. Like you don't have complete control. You just kind of got to make sure, give it a touch every now and again, but you don't want to turn the steering wheel too sharply, or you're just going to end up totally totaling yourself. So
right.
That's an interesting way to put it. I like that. Excuse me. We get a Dragon Rana to the outside. The moves keep on coming, and Kenny continues to get countered at every major spot. It's an incredibly unselfish match from Omega. Like you mentioned earlier, that Kenny feels like his greatest achievement is getting other wrestlers paid. In this match, he's an early AEW, like the biggest knock on the Elite in general and Kenny Omega was that like they were not being stars themselves. They were trying to put other people over. And even though Kenny Omega ultimately wins this match, throughout the match, he's letting Vikingo walk all over him.
Yeah, this is a Vikingo showcase. Like there's a lot of like, things we could say about, how Kenny Omega does his selling and stuff like that. And, all that is true and valid. But like, if you're just dropping into this and it's like, kind of the novice eye, you don't necessarily know what you're watching. You're going to see Vikingo and just think this guy is just out of this world. Like, and he is. But, if you're someone that is study, you can see like the plays are being called. Like this was also quietly an Omega masterpiece.
Yeah. Omega doesn't get enough credit for how well he sells. Like from like the purists out there, they would love to strap the like Kenny Omega has no psychology to Omega. But man, the way he sells and throws himself into his selling, particularly when he gets like kicked or hit with something big. He absolutely throws his body backwards with all the explosiveness we see when he goes for like a V-trigger or something. And it makes the other wrestler look so powerful and makes their offense look so crisp and snappy because of the way that Kenny just absolutely hurls himself with his explosiveness.
Yeah, one place that I think he's always done a good job is like selling the midsection, and I think he's going to do even better at that now.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Oh yeah, that's going to be yep. That's perfectly, because everyone knows what diverticulitis is thanks to Brock Lesnar, and him having it. So everyone in wrestling knows what it is. I had not thought of that at all, but that's a brilliant flag, Rich. You should clip that up or something, or post it on Twitter so you can point back to it and say, I was the first to notice this had happened.
Back to the light.
Yeah. Look, the moves continue. I'm just going to list a couple here, and we can talk about them, like what we loved and what the most crazy things that happened. Like Vikingo, he counters an attempted sunset bomb from Omega off the top turnbuckle with a poison rana. There's a Phoenix splash off the second rope to the outside. And after some Omega offense, we get a swan dive reverse hurricanrana. Some of these things I'm just struggling to exclaim what they were. And then we get the signature 720 through the table to the outside from the middle rope. So running in the ring. Just watch the freaking match, guys. It's incredible.
Yeah.
He jumps off the second rope in the ring and goes through it, spinning 620, 720 through the table. And look, the whole thing is just best explained by the commentators, where they're standing up, like screaming their lungs out, and Shivani just exclaims, Jesus, what's going on? Because Omega can't keep up. The commentators can't keep up. No one can keep up. Does anyone else move like this man, Rich?
Vikingo is such a one of one, like as far as like, I think something that makes him stand out is a lot of the inverted stuff that he would do. So like some of my favorite Vikingo things happen to where he's on the second turnbuckle, but like standing outside the ring, and then like he'll flip the wrong way, but it still come out, it comes out proper. The flip with over the ropes, like through the table, I think is the signature spot of this whole thing. There was also that Swan Dive Poison Rana thing on Kenny. I thought that was like gonna be like the last time I ever saw Kenny Omega wrestle. Like it was insane.
Yeah, he takes that right to the head.
Yeah, so like that 630 senton off the ropes through the table, like that's almost like, all right, we've hit the check. Like we had the intro dives, we had the reversals, we had dives out the ring, we had incredible spots in the ring, and then we had the final one here. It was almost like this checklist of like great moves. I don't know what more we could have wanted from Vikingo, like to kind of establish what type of flyer he was, but this was a masterclass. Like this made Vikingo feel electric, dangerous, and like he didn't care at all, like all at the same time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more there. Like I love the right at the start when he's like standing on Kenny Omega's shoulders and then flips and hits a hurricane. Like saying that sounds absurd. It sounds like something you'd see in a video game, but he hits it and makes it work. This man manages like feats of athleticism and an in-ring choreography that you just do not see anywhere else. And there's lots of people who probably try and can't do it, but this man can and hits it regularly. Back in the ring, getting to sort of the ending, Vikingo can't get the pinfall. After some back and forth, Omega manages to dodge an attempted 630 from Vikingo. He hits a decisive V-trigger and a one-winged angel. It's a decisive ending. Once Omega manages to hit the big moves, Vikingo crumbles, because even though, like, if this was a video game and you have like your sliders, he's deployed all of them to like athleticism and dexterity and doesn't have enough in constitution and strength. So once Omega hits the V-trigger and one-winged angel, it's over. What are your thoughts on the ending, Rich?
we knew it had to go one way. It wasn't going to be Kenny Omega laying down, but you gave this guy Vikingo everything. But at the end of the day, Kenny Omega is too big, too strong, too powerful, and the One Winged Angel is too much for any wrestler, pretty much. So no problem with the ending there, and the right guy wins, and it's almost like this sense of relief. Like if you're Kenny Omega, like, oh my God, this guy came in and gave me absolutely everything. Like I'm doing, trios, I'm in and out and not wrestling regularly. And it took my very best to put away this phenomenon essentially that just walked into promotion. And for this brief moment in time, it was like the center of the wrestling world.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, as I said, like extremely unselfish from Omega. He lets Vikingo get the better of him so often throughout the match. With the large majority of the offense is from Vikingo. It's not the kind of thing that most wrestlers would let happen. Like I look at, for example, there was a back in the Bracket Madness series, there was a match between the Infantry and the House of Black where literally the Infantry got 2 moves of offense in, and it was just the House of Black destroying them the whole time. That this is like the exact opposite of it. It's just Omega letting Vikingo, knowing that he's going to get the win, and knowing that he's here to spotlight a wrestler that they want to have a look at, they want the audience to have a look at because they've got plans for him. Now those plans might not have materialized the way that it was, the way that it ended up happening, but that's what was happening at the time. And absolute, as I said, like this is a triumph, and it could not have gone better for what it was.
Yeah. This is one of the best matches in Dynamite history, absolutely. And something I gave 5 stars for sure. And it was like, damn, they beat the hype. And the hype around this match was deafening from the bad faithers, from people that genuinely wanted to see it and knew it was going to be incredible. And was like, damn, can they live up? And then they do. And then and this is, I was like, man, I hope, they sure value this guy, Kenny Omega, that can make these things happen. And that's not, we don't always know the answer to that, but it feels good in these moments at least.
Yeah, look, I personally, I wouldn't say this is a match that like moved me or stuck with me, like, in the way that say maybe like Jon Moxley versus Wheeler Yuta did. To take another TV match that's like really highly acclaimed and well remembered. But that's just like, that's the style I like more. But, for this, for what it was, it could not have been executed more. I wasn't like punching the air or anything afterwards. I've really enjoyed this match. And yeah, it's not necessarily totally my cup of tea. I love Omega, but this style isn't necessarily my favorite style of wrestling, but I can't help but appreciate it and enjoy it when I watch it because it's, it's like, it's elite level at what it is. It's a Vikingo is an elite level flyer. Omega is like one of the elite wrestlers in the world. This is exactly what AEW should be. Like a tentpole for the best wrestling in the world.
100% agree.
After the match, Omega is attacked by the Blackpool Combat Club as they beat him down, and we hear sirens in the background. Sorry, go.
So thugs.
Yeah, thugs. Yep. Goons. We hear sirens in the background. And Hangman steps out, that goes to the camera, and Hangman steps out of the ambulance that he's commandeered, and he runs in to chase off the Blackpool Combat Club. Then Callis fakes getting attacked by Hangman, and Kenny Omega's like, what's going on? He's, not sure what's going on. Doesn't know if he can trust Hangman yet because this is only a week after Hangman had come back and sort of tentatively rejoined the Elite. And Callis is trying to, I guess, put some doubt into that, and then Dynamite rolls on with what's next. How did you feel about the sort of post-match beatdown little angle here, and this match as being part of the broader Elite versus BCC feud?
I get it, but like I kind of wanted to, hear Kenny talk, which I guess, they worked me because, you cut him off before he gets a chance to speak. I thought the Don Callis thing looked horrible. Like when, the floppy did. I didn't know if he did that on purpose or not, but it looked bad. And it gave us more of that, oh, shit, well, what's going to come next between Omega and Page? Like, are they going to be okay? Is Kenny going to realize this guy's a fucking scammer? Like, what's going on here? So, like, it left us kind of with more questions. So, It worked for the storyline, but I almost would have rather, a show closing promo, but they don't do those things sometimes.
It especially it kind of rankles me a little bit because one of the big things, there was a bit of tension between Omega and the Bucks at one point when they come back as trios, is because of what happened at the end of the Hangman match where Matt kind of goes over and corners Hangman and gives him the nod to beat Kenny. And there was a bit of tension around, like, does he know what's happened? And he goes, of course I saw it. I watched the show. And so them trying to do this when, and then continuing it on in weeks later that there's like still this, what happened with Don Callis and Hangman Page, when like Kenny Omega is going to watch the show. He's going to know what happens when he gets to the back. It's right. A bit, it's not 100%.
They're asking us to be dumb. Like,
yeah, it's not. It doesn't have the attention to detail that like AEW has had at different points in its history. But it's part of that broader Elite BCC feud, which I actually really like and I very much enjoyed for the most part. And this match doesn't have, the actual match itself doesn't have a whole lot to do with it, but I guess they had to fold it in somehow into that broader narrative around the Elite and Blackpool Combat Club.
See what happens when you gotta make sacrifices for the story. Like,
Rich, let's talk about sort of the legacy and how we remember this match. One of the jokes that I had with you from back in our forum days, and we all had, was Rich Latta Pro Wrestling. And it's a joke that's actually stuck. Like, I was trying to remember who came up with that first, and I couldn't. But it's definitely something that's stuck. And I feel like we need to get an RLPW shirt at some point.
Oh man, I'm working on it. Yeah. I got a little graphic, whatever. I haven't unleashed it yet. But
actually, depending when this goes out, it may be up on a website.
Right.
We'll say no more. But this match is pure RLPW. Where does it sit with you amongst your favorite Rich Latta Pro Wrestling Dynamite bangers?
I would say it's going to be comfortably in the top 10. Like, I haven't written this down or anything, but I find it hard for me to think I'm going to go 10 matches without mentioning this. This is the peak of. I thought it was so cool because there's a FU mode aspect to it. So all the people that kind of wanted to run it down, they had to watch it be great. It popped at the box office. It popped critically, and I thought it was like, just the speed, the high flying, the athleticism, the daredevilism, the setting things up in the perfect place, peaking the audience for the right moments. Like, these were all things that combined to make this a match I'll always remember. I don't even have to necessarily watch it, is because I remember the feeling that I got around it. And it was like, yeah, man, like, this guy Vikingo is crazy. Like, and you almost wanted to instantly see him. And then Tony Khan, being the promoter he was, announced that he was booked for the ROH show, which at that time was on pay-per-view. And they announced that he was going to be facing Commander, I believe. And then they were like, yeah, if you want to see this guy again, lay some money down. I was like, what a better advertisement than, you sent him out there with Kenny Omega and was like, you want to see him again? Like, so
they say he's not a businessman, but that guy, he has his moments.
This was like, it's another, great match, Kenny versus we've seen Kenny Omega versus Japan. The Kenny Omega versus Mexico folder is quite a sensational folder as well.
The ones that immediately came to mind for me when I'm, talking about this style of wrestling, Ray Phoenix versus Kenny Omega at the start of 2021.
Oh yeah.
Very similar dynamic. It even had an angle at the end with the Elite coming in and beating down Ray Phoenix. And then Ray Phoenix versus Dante Martin. I'm not sure if you remember that one, but that was crazy. Ray Phoenix sort of trying to bring Dante Martin up onto his level in terms of like, this man can match me as a high flyer. Last year we had Swerve Strickland versus AR Fox. Swerve sort of changed his style a fair bit, I feel like, as he's moved up to sort of being like in contention for the heavyweight championship. And it's smart to do, but if that man knows how to fly as well. And then the other one I thought of was another Swerve match, but his match with Nick Wayne. They were the ones that immediately come to mind. It's
Nick Jackson versus Ray Phoenix. That's another one.
How did I forget? Yep, both of their matches. Yeah. from when did they had 2019 and they had one, I think it was 2023, was it?
Yeah, they had one last year. Yep.
Yeah, I'm hoping when Bandito gets back, maybe, and
That's
if
the one I
Ricochet
want.
comes to AEW, then
Yeah.
there's a lot of potential there.
Right where I want to go. I would be booking if I was a booker of this promotion. We all would already know what I would be lining up.
Yep. You can have a belt based around it. And look, that's kind of goes where what my next thing is. Vikingo actually did recently tease coming back to AEW, recently being in July. He posted a photo of him at Dynamite. I'm not sure if it was a new Dynamite photo or him when he was at Dynamite. There has been a freezing of relations with AAA since AEW partnered with CMLL because, that CMLL and AAA, that beef's older than the Earth itself, it seems like.
Yeah.
But if and Vikingo, of course, also did get injured at one point. How would you deploy Vikingo if he was to be made fully available in AEW, Rich?
I think I would probably give him a tag team partner, just because I feel like tag team wrestling in AEW could be a little bit better than what it's been. And then seeing how the Young Bucks are, they are they're not the Young Bucks they once were, as far as the Daredevil stuff, the athleticism, the flying, the stuff like that. And it's all right, let's get some guys in there that will do that, and they could possibly just kind of transition that mantle to or whatever that can kind of carry that forward. You could always use this guy as a great secondary champion. I do have questions about the use of international wrestlers in AEW and their true top of the card potential, but all those secondary titles for me would be up for the taking, or something in the tag ranks for sure. I think one other thing we should probably mention about Omega and Vikingo was Kenny Omega upholding the commitment of putting this guy over eventually and going to Mexico to do it. So this was after they ended up having a rematch and they finally had the AAA title match in Mexico, and Vikingo did end up getting the win over Kenny Omega, and it was almost like this chapter got closed essentially of this this 1-on-1 rivalry that you saw just two great matches, and it was man, you'll think about it one day, and it's it's not going to be the first feud I think of when it comes to Kenny Omega or anything, but it's this just nice even kind of thing of this home and home series, and and honoring your commitments, and Kenny got over huge in Mexico while he was a champion. I felt like those fans deserved that match because that was a match he was going to Mexico and building up to. So I thought it was really special that they didn't just do it in AEW, but they finished the series the right way in Mexico.
Absolutely, and once again Kenny Omega doesn't need to take those losses. He could say no.
He could have easily said, "Nah, man, I'm not flying to Mexico again."
Yeah,
easy.
I'm not flying to Mexico to lose. No, not happening.
Right.
But he did because he's an unselfish guy. My thought, similar to yours with the tag team, my pitch for the trios division for forever has been you just have you build it around fast-paced matches. You get the trios belts off, as funny as it was seeing Christian holding all three belts in the patriarchy. I feel like the trios division could just be this absolute barn burner of a division where you've got loose affiliations coming. It doesn't have to be long-term trios. It can just be three random guys, and there's lots of upsets. The belts change. The belts change hands every maybe 4 or 5 matches early on. And then, then maybe later on you can have someone who manages a trio that manages to hold it for a few months. And that's a big deal because, these matches are so fast, high paced and unpredictable that who knows who's going to win them. And if you can manage to hold it off for long enough, then, that sort of really gets you over. And you could, use that sort of match on Rampage or, some of those, when you end up in a situation where you've got a crowd that's a bit burnt out, maybe a little bit dead or a little bit small, you just send out a trios match with 6 guys who are just willing to blitz it. We're not talking in-ring psychology or anything. We're talking people who are willing to go out there and have matches. And you sort of mentioned Vikingo's not a perfect wrestler. We talked about the spectacular nature of what he does, but he's not having. Well, he can have great singles matches, but not in terms of what we would put as American Western pro wrestling, quote unquote, great long match, or main event status match. But Vikingo fits perfectly into a match where he can just go balls to the walls for 15 minutes. And, in a trios match, you can hide a lot. You can hide a lot of limitations. I think of, I don't know why we didn't get more trios with the Top Flight and Action Andretti trio. They should be out there third week, in some sort of trios match. Or
big ball drop for a lot of the trios usage. Pick three,
just pick three people and go. And it doesn't have to have massive long-term stories. It's fun, it's hot, and it is unpredictable. That would be, and that I'd place Vikingo squarely in that, at least to start with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Kenny Omega currently sitting out with diverticulitis. We hope he gets well soon. It's the kind of thing where, you don't necessarily know how long it's going to take him to get better. Hopefully he does come back and comes back at full speed. What do you hope happens when he returns?
I hope that he gets like this kind of reverence that I think is long overdue for him. Like he gets like the hero's welcome. And then like, it's almost like, all right, this is, his road to get the babyface win, eventually. Like there's so many like new people for him to face. He's got to wrestle Okada. He's got to wrestle, Will Ospreay again. He's got to wrestle Swerve, and he's got to wrestle Jack Perry for sure. And I think it would eventually be valuable to cash in on a couple of those matches that were just like these original matches that just weren't there. Like they never did Kenny and Darby, which is like, would probably be similar to this match, but like I think in a much more car crash kind of way. And just off the top of my head, like those are four opponents I definitely want. And then if him and Danielson can do it one more time, them just leaving a draw hanging out there, that doesn't sit well with me. Like I think we need to have another one. So those would probably be the 5 matches I want to see.
Yeah. I'd just add in there Eddie Kingston, because I want to know what it looks like. Yeah. Like they're totally different styles, but they're two guys who love pro wrestling so much and are clearly nerds for it. And so I'm curious like what they would come up with if given the chance.
It would be Kenny Omega saying, you do all this stuff, you idolize all these guys in Japan and all that. I actually went over there and did it. Like,
just run back that old promo that you did in 2019. Oh, you went to the G1, did you, John? Yeah. How'd you go? Yeah. I won it first try.
Right. Eddie Kingston, have you ever won the G1 climax? I checked your record when you went over there. Didn't look like you won to me. Like,
you won. What New Japan title did you win? The Strong? I won the IWGP.
Right. We could write this whole thing in about 15 minutes.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyway, I just hope he comes back. And look, as I said, I think earlier in this thing, the lesson is don't hold off. Like if he comes back, like whatever your plans are, tear him up. He should be at Wembley in a big singles match if he can do it.
Eddie Kingston, have you ever main evented the Tokyo Dome?
You sold out Korakuen Hall, did you? Great.
Yeah.
You know how many times I did that? I sold out the building next door.
Right.
Man. Look, Rich, have you got anything more to say about this match before we get out of here?
I think this is an awesome match to check out if you want to learn what Vikingo does. This wouldn't be strangely like one of my I'm going to show you how great Kenny Omega is, like for a commoner. This wouldn't be one of those. This is for folks with a little bit more refined taste, I'd say. But I think this is definitely something to remember for as far as the the discourse that went into it. And it was embarrassing. It was unbecoming, and perhaps some of the earliest cases of Legento activity.
Yeah, well, who knows? When did that guy get employed? We can probably look back and see when it all started, right? Like,
but all this stuff really started with the inception of the promotion. Like this is just a symptom. of the things of not being allowed to do anything their way.
Yep. Rich, thank you for coming on today. It's been a pleasure to talk about Kenny Omega with you once again. Always fun. And look, as I said at the top, congratulations on everything you've got going on. Is there anything in particular you'd like to plug?
Just listen to One Nation Radio, great flagship show of the Social Suplex Podcast Network. And check out my YouTube channel. You just type in Rich Latta.
Yep, and your merch at onelifetime.com, I believe.
Yeah, onelifetimeworldwide.com. Get your merch.
Absolutely. Support the channel, support the people you love to listen to. And look, if you enjoyed the show today, you can subscribe or rate it on your podcast app of choice. You can support the podcast financially through Red Circle. And those three things make a huge difference to us, particularly if you can rate and review it. We'd really appreciate that. On Spotify, iTunes, whatever you're on, it makes a big difference to us getting out there. And, if you want, share the show on social media as well. Let the people know what we've got going on. I think Social Suplex is a real uncovered gem. Like I feel like it's building up, but it could be bigger.
Knocking on the door.
And there's a lot of people out there who do podcasts that are not as good as us. And I try and be humble and try and have humility, but I listen to other podcast networks, and I'm just like, that should be us. That should be us. So yeah, look, if you want to get out there and help the cause, we all do it for the love of the game, and we'd love it if you could help us along the way with the rate and review, or as I said, financially, you can support us through Red Circle. You can find me on Twitter at Sir_Samuel, or if you want to suggest a match to me, you can jump into the Social Suplex Discord, into the AEW Match Guide channel. Suggest a match for me to review on here, and we'll see what we can do for you. We've started, I've dipped my toe a little bit into TKROH. I've got thoughts about, maybe even some old New Japan stuff we could do that's related to AEW. There's lots of options out there, so jump in there. Let me know what you'd like me to be talking about. Yeah, look, next fortnight on the pod. I'm still getting used to being fortnightly. We're going to be chatting about a match that I think you'd probably have a little bit to say about, Rich, as well. We're talking about the Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory. We're going to be spending the next two podcasts talking about the rise of Swerve Strickland in AEW. We're talking about the Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory next fortnight, and then a fortnight after that, we've got a big dog, Swerve versus Hangman Page, Texas Death. So you can look forward to that on the AEW Match Guide. I know I certainly am.
At the risk of not sounding like I'm tuned in, how long is a fortnight?
A fortnight, 2 weeks.
Okay. I've learned something, if nothing else, today.
Wait, hold on. You guys don't have the word fortnight in American English.
Look, only in the video game.
Jesus. Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I've been saying it for ages. There's a whole bunch of my listeners are like, what the fuck
this is that about? This is that exchange of culture, that So Suplex is so great with.
Oh, mate, I come to you to talk about, to find out what's going on in the real pop culture, and you just asked me about random English words that I try.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop a fortnight on One Nation Radio, and and it's gonna be just for you.
Yeah, when Kendrick Lamar and Drake have got beef, I come to you to find out what's going on. And when someone's talking about fish and chips and beans, or come to me. Oh, Rich. Well, look, in 2 weeks' time, I'll be talking about.
There we go.
Oh, mate, you've thrown me right off. But yes, in 2 weeks' time, I'll be talking about the Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory, and then Swerve versus Hangman Adam Page in Texas Death. So you've got that to look forward to if you keep listening to the podcast in a couple weeks' time. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you again, Rich, for showing up and for jumping on the podcast with me again. And for all the listeners out there, I'll catch you again soon.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the AEW Match Guide podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then you can subscribe on the podcast app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Also, feel free to let me know on Twitter at Sir_Samuel. I'd love to hear from you. The AEW Match Guide podcast is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. where you can find many other fantastic podcasts discussing not just AEW, but all parts of the world of professional wrestling. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Sam Brown.